Welcome everyone to the Risk Management and Hazard Mitigation Collaboration Team's webinar series. We created this webinar series because we saw a great opportunity to connect the community engaged in developing tools and also data sets to support communities affected by geohazards in Alaska and the Arctic. Because there's a lot of exciting projects going on and new ideas. So connecting people is a main purpose of this webinar, and also to identify opportunities and what we have yet to do and data needs and new tools and so on to support assessment, planning, and mitigation of geohazards in the Arctic environment. So I'm very, very excited and very grateful for Leslie Jones to taking the time here today to prepare a presentation for us on the power of partnerships in mapping Alaska. And Leslie is the Geospatial Information Officer for the state of Alaska. And she is also the Executive Director of the Alaska Geospatial Council. She has spent over 20 years as a geospatial statistician working in multidisciplinary applied research with experience across all sectors. And in her current roles, she serves as a National Geospatial Advisory Committee, where she advises on national policy and management issues related to the National Spatial Data Infrastructure and also the implementation of the Geospatial Data Act. Thank you, Leslie, for taking on those big, important leadership roles. And thank you so much for presenting here today. So I'll hand it over to you. And we'll have presentation from Leslie and then about 10, 15 minutes at the end for question and discussions. And you can use the chat or raise hand feature for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, thanks for having me today. I've prepared a lot of content here, but my goal is because I think there are a lot of new people actually that aren't in my direct circle that are part of this community. And so really just making folks aware of where they might be able to plug in. And so, yeah, let me get this going. So what I want to cover here is a little bit of who and what I am and my role in my current role with the Alaska Geospatial Office. I'm going to provide a little bit of history when it comes to Alaska mapping, some of our current mapping initiatives that we have going on, and partnerships that are supporting those mapping initiatives. I'm going to talk a little bit about data access and integration, where we're at with that and where we want to go in the future, and what's on the horizon when it comes to my office and some of my goals that I'd like to accomplish in the next year or so. I'm Leslie Jones. I'm the Geospatial Information Officer for the state of Alaska. I serve in several advisory roles, one of which is NGAC, the National Geospatial Advisory Committee, as a member. Recently, and that's both the Federal Advisory Committee on Landslides and NGAC are appointed by the Secretary of the Interior. And I also serve on the Alaska Mapping Executive Committee, which I'll speak a little bit about today. So much of my role is in an advisory capacity, and finding, policy and funding needs for Alaska and how we might attack some of our mapping gaps and goals. If you're just curious about how many states have GIOs, 49 of 50 states have GIOs in the nation. And so in terms of the primary functions of my office, is advising and improving data governance and distribution. So how we connect people to the information they need. Building collaborative partnerships around our goals. That's probably where I spend most of my time, in terms of just connecting people and projects, especially across Alaska, where we find we're often have many, many overlapping goals and projects, but people aren't connected. So really just kind of connecting the dots. Encouraging modernization and innovation regarding use of geospatial technologies. So not just educating, our workforce or our staff and people actually doing the technical work, but a lot of time I spend is at an executive level of educating on the importance of geospatial and how it's used to help us, with state priorities or national priorities in terms of decision making. And then Alaska, right? We're different than CONUS, the lower 48. And so I work very closely with federal partners to provide recommendations on how Alaska is different, right? How we need to do things differently in Alaska. So that's recommendations regarding policy and then funding to for many of the gaps that we have up here. I like this one because, maybe everyone here knows, but this is the real world. We use our phone, we look at a map, but the GIS world is all of these different lasagna layers that go into a map. And so my focus is really on the lasagna layers and what they look like for Alaska. Are they up to date? Are they accessible? Are they accurate? And so these lasagna layers, if you're not familiar, we call them and refer to them as framework data and foundational data layers for our nation, not just Alaska. There are laws behind these layers, right? The Geospatial Data Act and the A16 Circular designated federal agencies responsible for these layers for our nation. So with statutory laws comes funding. And so a lot of what I do is working with those federal partners that are responsible for mapping these for our nation and prioritizing how the funds get spent in Alaska, right? Where we need them, where do our communities need these data? Where are our gaps? What's our status of these layers? So each of these layers are what I like to refer to and our nation refers to as our spatial data infrastructure, okay? These are the data, these are common data layers used to answer many, many questions, including hazards, community planning, how you get UPS to your house to deliver a brown box, how you get COVID tests when they were during the pandemic, supply chains, all sorts of things, right? Like same data used to answer many questions. These are why they're identified as critical layers for our nation. So my role is looking to see the accuracy and currency of these layers for Alaska, but I also do that within the context of our nation. And every one of the state GIOs across the nation are doing these similar things for their states and developing state spatial data infrastructures that then get rolled up to the national level. If you're interested, I wouldn't be doing, as an advisor, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention that we just recently, the National Geospatial Advisory Council just recently passed, FGDC just released our 2035 strategic plan for our nation's spatial data infrastructure. So just definitely want to plug that and say, has several goals around governance, data and technology, and people. And so we're looking to see, I guess maybe ask yourself where you can plug into this in the future as we look to an implementation plan. All right, so with all of these layers, the lasagna layers, right, where does Alaska sit? Well, we have these geospatial maturity assessments. COGO has one, NISJIC has one, and we don't have a great grade, right? We got an overall grade of D. We actually, many of the data that kind of are created at a local government level are where we lack statewide consistency and have many gaps. But really, one of the roles that I play is sort of like identifying, duplicate, right? We want to deduplicate efforts when it comes to many of these critical data layers. Alaska is a huge state, limited resources. How do we efficiently, effectively spend money? So why don't we have these data layers, and why do we have so many gaps as compared to CONUS? I think I don't really have to go too far into this, but obviously it's our size, it's our complexity of our ecosystem when it comes to collecting and producing these types of data. Our landscape is extremely dynamic with natural hazards, and so our dynamic nature means we're constantly needing to refresh and update, right? So the expense of that is much different than what it looks like in CONUS. I think this is a really impactful graphic on just the size of Alaska and the recent Typhoon Merbok that hit the coast, impacting Alaska. So those are all probably things you're all familiar with regards to challenges, but some of the things that maybe aren't on your radar and things that I deal with when it comes to consistent data layers for Alaska, right? Like one consistent statewide data layer. Our 67% of our lands are federally owned. We have 228 federally recognized tribes. When it comes to data collection, we lack infrastructure. So the cost is much higher than CONUS, right? But one of the things that's also challenging is that 50% of our land falls into what's an unorganized borough, which means the legislature is the local government. And because of this, there's no, consistent, stable funding and programs for what is typically data that's typically curated and created at a local government level, right? Like our road systems, our addresses, our land ownership, things of that are very important for derivative, data products. We lack that organizational governance, I'm going to say, to these data. So yeah, when it comes to statewide mapping challenges, all of these issues and all of these become challenges when it comes to funding a project, planning or prioritizing where we're going to spend money. Actually, differences with programmatic requirements with regards to CONUS, like on national programs, consistent data standards, how we connect people with data, meaning we have many sort of data silos. So I don't really have to go too much more into that. All right, so how are we addressing all of these goals? So we do it through a coordinated mapping approach in Alaska. In 2006, the Alaska Geospatial Council was formed as a way to coordinate the development and management of geographic information in Alaska. And the AGC, as we refer to it, is a unique stakeholder group in that it's all its different sectors, right? So we want to hear who's collecting what around the state. How do we deduplicate? How do we meet goals together? How do we identify goals and needs, right? And so since 2006, this council has been meeting. The working groups under the council have ebbed and flowed over time. We currently have 13 working groups that are focused on like vegetation mapping, soil mapping, our surface waters. So many statewide goals, but also either also priority initiatives for the state, like food security, energy, things of that sort are being formed under the council as well. So not just, it's kind of like identifying those data gaps, but also coming up with like common data standards for integration, things of that sort. Again, if you're curious how many states have organizing geospatial councils, there's 46 of 50 that have these councils because they're so critical, right, for geospatial data in terms of integrating across jurisdictions and things of like that sort. All right, so these state councils are not unique. 46 states have them. I do want to highlight something that is really unique to Alaska, and that is a federal and state organizing body. So in 2011, our congressional delegates wrote a letter to OMB. Essentially, the message was Mars is better mapped than Alaska. We need help. We need increased coordination for Alaska to bring them up to speed like CONUS. And so since 2012, there's been yearly funding that has gone to support Alaska mapping and modernization under the USGS. And as a result of this funding, a coordinating committee was created. It's called the Alaska Mapping Executive Committee. Again, extremely unique to Alaska. No other state has it. Kind of reiterating the fact that 70% of our lands are federally owned. So when it comes to mapping the state, right, we're doing this together. So everyone's kind of putting money into the pot towards a common goal. And so we have executives of all the different federal agencies, as along with the state of Alaska, that are identifying what priorities are, and then focusing sort of efforts on funding and funding and completing those priorities. So I think one of the most probably prolific successes of AMEC was our statewide IFSAR product, which was a 10-year project, over $68 million that was cost shared between federal agencies in the state of Alaska. Other goals are highlighted on the left here, but with regards to our current mapping goals, we're shifting focus to statewide LIDAR, statewide imagery, statewide wetland, vegetation, hydrography, and coastal mapping are goals under this specific committee. And again, so AMEC is sort of this federal and state coordinating body with regards to funding projects. And then we have the AGC, which is our local and regional coordinating body, right? This is where our local, Alaska regional representatives, local government, tribal affiliations, university partners, private partners are all getting together to say, how do we tackle these goals? How do we prioritize for Alaska? And this is where we engage at that level. So I just wanted to highlight a few, what I think might be, I can't cover all of sort of the data themes across all of these different working groups, but a couple that I thought were worthy of highlighting is our goal towards statewide wetland mapping. This group met yesterday and was extremely excited to announce that we have funded 100% of wetland mapping in Alaska. And so what does that mean? That means that you can expect approximately 50 million acres of new wetland data to be available for Alaska in 25, 26, and 27. This accomplishment is ahead of this goal, which was to map wetlands by 2029. So that'll be done by 2027. If you want more information on this, you can go directly to the AGC working group page. There's QR codes here to go to the working group site, as well as directly to the wetlands, to access the wetlands data. Another initiative I wanted to mention is the Coastal and Ocean Working Group. So we have, under AMEC, we have a coastal mapping strategy that was published in 2020, an implementation plan that was published in 2022. And the goal essentially of that is to envision seamless topography by the year 2030. So along our coastlines, this is imagery, topo LIDAR, topography along the nearshore environment, and of course, leveraging all different technologies that might have to be used to do that. Also vertical datum, finishing and completing vertical datum for Alaska, which is how we'll seam together topo LIDAR and topography. Yeah, so vertical datum being connecting the vertical datum, the lit soil orthometric and tidal datums, so that we can seam together the nearshore environment with the terrestrial environment. And so I just did want to highlight that project. We have right now, we're funding water level observations all along the coastline, and really excited to announce that the first statewide VData model will be released by the end of year 2025, and highlighting the collaborative partnership that's ongoing with that project. I also wanted to know Meredith's here. I also wanted to highlight Seascape Alaska as a regional mapping campaign to provide seafloor data in the US EEZ, and highlighting the story map. There's a link down here to the story map that you can access with regards to this project and program. And then just highlighting that 63% of US waters of Alaska are unmapped. But if you go to that story map, it provides a cool map of what actually has been collected as of recently. Our hydrography working group is working on surface waters. This is a USGS funded project. And we're excited to say that 65% of the state has been contracted with updated surface water mapping. So rivers, streams, lakes, not the depths, just, linear lines, line systems. And the way these are prioritized from headwaters to the outlets, because these are elevation derived products. So we're excited this is sort of an example of past products and what future products look like in terms of the density of the networks, and the resolution of the networks. Again, if you want more information on this, you can go directly to the hydrography working group website and or connect with the co-chairs of these working groups. Yeah, so imagery and elevation, this is one I thought would probably be really relevant to this group. So we have a working group that's working on sort of coordination of imagery and LiDAR across the state, talking about sort of standardizations when it comes to specifications and data governance, and kind of more importantly these days is how we share and deduplicate efforts on this front. Wanted to make people aware that we have a statewide imagery mosaic. I'll show you where to access that here in a little bit. But this is a satellite-based product, again, that we work with our federal partners on to fund. And we're actively working to replace tiles in this mosaic to any tiles that are greater than 5 years old, have cloud cover, have snow cover. And so this is a dynamic, I guess, product in the sense that we're looking forward to the next version of this product, where it would update these tiles and update in terms of this statewide mosaic. But my office hosts this product, and it's used as a base map by many users, and we get a lot of data requests for this. This product, the imagery product, has also been used and also funded by, has also been used to derive building footprints in a machine learning environment. We have a building footprint layer that is used with hazards, response, mitigation plans. It's a really helpful product. It is not licensed publicly, so this is one that we manage internal restricted access to, but I do think it's very important for a lot of the work that people are doing in this group, so I just want to make sure that you realize this is available. As we start to update the imagery mosaic, we also think simultaneously about the opportunities, if there's funding, to update building footprints as we get new imagery in. I wanted to touch a little bit on satellite remote sensing in terms of imagery. In a world that our Earth observation systems are extremely valuable, especially when it comes to Alaska, not only from a research perspective, but from an operational perspective. We have in the state a contract with Planet Labs in terms of an Earth observation contract. And this gives us access to daily satellite imagery across the state. And we're also able to task, when we need to task higher resolution, we utilize this contract. So just some examples of how we're using Earth observation within state operations here with regards to wildfire tracking, perimeter, like drawing perimeter updates, for tracking mining activities over the season, rather than flying into these remote areas. Actually, for like field recon, it seems to be one of the more common uses. Like people want to know, when is it snow free? When can we get into the field? We also use it a lot for hazard response, right? Pre and post change comparisons on that. And then highlighting again, just how closely my office works with our federal partners. I did want to highlight our partnership with the Civil Applications Committee, specifically in utilizing federal contracts for tasking Earth observation systems, whether it's optical or radar, post-hazard event. And so Dan and Scott, we worked very closely with. They helped us to task at post-Typhoon Merbach, um, as well as helping with tasking in support of our volcano observatory, um, the tsunami threats in Prince William Sound. And then I thought this would be an interesting one to highlight, because it's not really hazards, but it also highlights their outreach to, I guess, make people aware that this is a resource that can be used, right? So in terms of walrus haul outs. All right, shifting away from imagery, I wanted to highlight elevation and LiDAR. I know this one's extremely important to this community. So as we, shifting away, we have statewide IFSAR in terms of our past elevation product. We're now shifting focus to statewide LiDAR under the USGS Next Generation 3DEP program. And so I work really, really closely with USGS right now and other federal partners under AMEC to prioritize LiDAR. I spend an enormous amount of time actually on this. And so, we are really happy to say that in 2025, all of our communities across Alaska will have LiDAR coverage for the first time ever. So this is a huge accomplishment. We've been prioritizing environmentally threatened communities. I currently have a FEMA funded project that we've been tasking collecting LiDAR across the state for these communities. And so we're really happy to work with USGS. We understand that's a priority for them. And so much of what we do is this like planning, prioritizing to publishing phase, right? And figuring out how to more effectively spend the money, but also thinking down the road about how do we connect the people with the information they need. And that's a challenge. So I've given you some highlights, right? Going back to AGC and our council and our different working groups. And I've given you just kind of some snippets of what's going on with some of those working groups. But I just want to highlight there's a whole lot more, right, that I'm not touching on. And so if you go to the AGC website, and maybe I should just pull that up real quick. Hopefully as I change this, you can still see. Do I need to reshare my screen or can you see the change?
We can see the website.
Okay, all right, cool. So AGC website here, you can go to access. Each of the working groups has their own website, right? And they're good places to go to look at data status and things of that sort. It also will point you to the co-chairs for those working groups. So who are the leads for these working groups and sort of federal partners or state partners? And we keep a calendar on this website of working group meetings. They typically meet quarterly or 3 times a year. Some actually meet like every 2 or 3 weeks. It just depends on what they're working on and sort of the frequency of that. So here's where you would go to find out where working group meetings are. I also will plug right here a list if you're not part of this working, or if you're not receiving newsletters from us and you want to, here is where you go to subscribe to quarterly newsletters that we put out with, I don't know, new information about what's going on. All right. All right, so I've given you an update on sort of like all of these different mapping initiatives across the state, things we're working on. But really, who cares? We can spend a lot of money collecting data, but if people can't find it, then what's the point, right? So really what's what I am passionate about is trying to make data more findable, accessible. Not only that, we got to make it interoperable in the world we live in today. So making data fair. And so my office serves twofold. I serve as the ED for the Geospatial Council, right? That's our coordinating body for all this. And then my office administers the state geoportal. And that's gisdata.alaska.gov. So coordination to fill gaps. How do we get data into people's hands? And so this is a priority that I have right now with a couple current projects. So I'll give you a little bit of like what the future of what I'm working on right now. But um, we live in this. Unfortunately, you know, our data in Alaska is ever siloed across all of these different agencies. So I'm really thinking about how do you integrate data across our different partnerships, right? How do you create connected partner systems? And not only that in terms of data, but we talk a lot of bit about providing products for communities based on their needs. So meeting communities where their needs are, right? If you need a paper map, we're doing that. If you want a GeoPDF, we're doing that. So like really understanding what community needs are and providing products that that meet those needs. So again, it's not just about collecting data here. I also want to mention that with a lot of these mapping initiatives we have right now, we're talking about big data, right? Imagery, LiDAR, topography. These are huge data sets for a huge state. So if we are not really deliberately thinking about big data right now and how it's going to be served, we're not doing our job. We need to really think about this. So it's going to be a challenge ahead. All right, so the public access point, this is a site that my office hosts. So we host the site. It is a tool, as Anna said to me earlier today. But I'm not hosting and managing data in this environment, okay? I'm partnering with agencies at a local, state, federal, or university level where they are the stewards of their data. They manage it, they refresh it. I'm just connecting to it. I'm really just pointing you as a user to their system, right? So this is an interconnected system of different agency information. So let me go back to this. So this is the site. And so, yeah, you could search, you know, I don't know what do you want to say. What do you want to search for? Roads. So you could search for roads and you might get roads from Tongass National Forest or the Matsu Borough or, you know, different land managing entities and how their DOT and how they're managing roads, right? So again, I'm not hosting anyone's data. This is just a tool for connecting different stewards information. And so, yeah, we are ever how do I say, ever working on this. It is a work in progress with regards to like governance around it, how data gets tagged, how it gets discovered. And so I am currently have a project to improve data discoverability in the portal, but it is a tool that can be utilized. On that same site, there's an imagery tab, which will lead you to a couple of our statewide imagery mosaics. And then we also have an elevation tab that points you to various different elevation data sources. This kind of points to data silos that we currently have going on with regards to elevation data. You know, the beauty of our federal partnerships and that we're cost sharing, you know, these data collections is also a crutch where we have ever silos of information. And so I'm happy to say that I'm piloting right now a API that integrates different sources of imagery and elevation data, whether it's from federal partners or Earth observation systems, So it would be a single platform for discovery, for visualization, for downloads. I do not have a timeline on this, but I'd say, in the next 6 months, we should have something to have publicly available potentially. So why are we doing all this, right? Is really because we're in a world, our technology world is moving from data and information to really solutions and insights, right? So we need to know really what data is fit for purpose. We need to be better at assigning sort of quality metrics. I know as scientists, I don't have to say this to this group. I was a research scientist for 20 plus years as an end user of geospatial data. It was my job, right, to figure out what data was fit for use, multiple sources of information, which one's appropriate for my project. And so part of what I would like to see us do more so that we can move from human, I guess, readable data to more machine readable data let me go higher. I'm kind of bouncing around here. Is thinking about how we serve data. So I like this continuum, like ask yourself, where are you on this continuum, right? As we move from serving human readable data to machine readable data. We've moved from sort of analog mapping to cartography in a digital world. Now we've got these hubs, some of which we're connecting systems of systems, right? This is what I'm doing with the Geo portal. I'm connecting hubs of information, but really where we're going at a national and global level, I'm speaking of here, is really an intelligent ecosystem of information. So we really have to be conscious about what information we're putting out there because it's already being harvested, right? Data across the world is being harvested, whether you like it or not. And so, what are those things you're thinking about as you're publishing data to ensure data quality and things of that sort? So yeah, the future is really of GeoAI. So we really want to think as a community about moving to publishing feature services that ensure interoperability, sustainable services for data, making sure we have complete metadata. And really what we're after here, or what I'm after here for a lot of these really critical and framework foundational data sets for Alaska is real-time conflation of data, right? If data starts at a local government level, how do we conflate that in real time to the state level so that Google consumes it, so that FedEx consumes it, so that all of these people that are already consuming these data are consuming, authoritative, high quality, real-time information. All right, so got data. We want to know about it. You want to be a part of the state portal. We want to get you connected. Part of what I want to say here is before you go and collect data, ask yourself, does it already exist? Can we be putting our resources efficiently and more effectively somewhere else? How do you ensure the money you're spending of data that can be in the public domain? We understand some of it needs to be restricted. What can be in the public domain? How do you get it out there so that we're not just adding a hard drive to your pile? Yeah, and I spoke a little about this. How do you get involved in the Alaska network? Go to the Alaska Geospatial Council. There's a calendar there. Sign up for our newsletter. And then the last thing I want to mention is the Alaska Geospatial Summit, the Alaska Geo Summit, which is April 9th to 11th next year. You got one day to submit an abstract. So call for speakers is currently underway. It ends tomorrow night, and you can go to the website to submit an abstract. We would love to hear people from this community. We'd like to hear from you, but also like to see you attend. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Leslie. Amazing, amazing. So we have some time here now, about 15 minutes for questions and comments and thoughts and yeah, indeed, applause across the room. So go for it. You can unmute yourself, or raise your hand, or yeah, write in the comment section.
I'll do my best at answering any questions, but I can also point you to the, right sources if you have them.
Go for it, Jeff.
Hi, Leslie, that was awesome. You mentioned that there's a lot of wetland mapping that is available now or will be shortly. Um, Over the years, wetland mapping has been how wetlands have been defined has varied. And I guess I'm curious if these wetlands will be classified such that if interpretations change, they'll still be useful.
Great question. I'm not going to have the specific answers to your question. However, I will say that that was actually discussed in the working group meeting yesterday. Because now, the focus has sort of been filling the gaps under the Fish and Wildlife Service National Wetland Inventory. Now that they're completing sort of those national program requirements, I'll say for Alaska, right? We 100% funded. They're now transitioning into like, what should we be focusing on next, right? And so I know that higher resolution discussion, I think that's what you're meaning, sort of like different classifications of wetland, functional
Mhm.
classes of wetlands. That was we had a survey yesterday of like, where should we pivot? And so I know that was one of the things that was brought to the working group. And so I don't know if you know Sydney Thilke, but she is the regional coordinator for Alaska. And I'll pop her contact in the chat. She's a great resource, and I'm sure she'd love to talk to you about it.
Super, thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, Leslie. This is Ryan Witten from Anchorage, Alaska. I just wanted to say a quick thank you for your work to bring together Alaska's geospatial data and the various streams of research information that you see by the various faces presented here. I think it's really important for our state so that we have this portal to be able to easily access the information and more easily derive insight from it. So I'm excited to see the pathway that you've laid out for us, and looking forward to seeing it continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. I appreciate it.
And I see Luann Dahlman has a question in the chat. Do you offer training opportunities to help people access and use the AGC data?
We don't have any trainings. This would be a great idea though for the Geo Summit. Yeah, this would be a really great idea. So I don't know if I highlighted the fact that I am a single person office. So one person to my office. So I don't have the capacity to do this, but as I'm thinking about the future contracts that you're having in place to improve the portal, right? We want version 2 to improve the portal in terms of more data into it, governance surrounding it. So I think a really good part of that project should be a training. And so maybe that's something that we could do at the Geo Summit. I think that's a great idea. So thank you for reminding me that is needed for the community.
Leslie, I was curious, like you are situated within the state of Alaska, correct? Okay. So is the state of Alaska trying to make all of its various departments kind of make the data that they have more accessible in this format? So
Good question. As with any local government, federal agency, whatever, it's funding driven and capacity driven. So some departments have GIS staff, have sort of programmatic structure to maintaining their, I'll call them data assets for their departments. DNR is well structured and does a really good job of DNR data. DEC is funded and has people and sort of organizational structure for that. DOT does. Fish and Game does as well. But things I would say, like, I'll just give you an example for like our elections division doesn't have staff, or our health, like there's some divisions and departments that don't have any GIS staff, right? So then this is not happening. And sometimes it gets contracted out. And I'm sure, like, you guys know, is like sometimes it gets contracted out and then that data still never makes its way where it should, right? So it's all about funding and capacity across the board, and it's very different.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ryan had a comment here before he jumped out too. So I wonder how folks might be able to help amplify and extend your work. I would be interested in being part of the group that could help explore governance of this data and supporting its access.
Okay. Can someone pop his contact in the chat, or can someone connect me with him? That would be wonderful. And the one thing I did not do, so we had an imagery, I'm guessing imagery and elevation is really important for this group. Am I assuming the right thing here? Yeah, so we just had a working group meeting this week, and I had a Menti survey that I was really interested to see what people's needs were with regards to the future of our portal. So I don't think I really spoke enough about that, but we're really envisioning an integrated imagery and elevation portal, right? Where people can find resources available and download data or just visualize data. And so I don't know if there's time here to run through. I don't know if people have additional questions, but I don't know if there's time here to run, because I feel like this.
Yeah, Leslie, if that can help you, I think let's do that. And then if someone has a question here as we prepare for that, feel free to speak up or comment. If we can help you, that'd be awesome. You helped us here. Sharing.
So let me share. I think if I start this right now, I think we might have to do this quick, because otherwise I can try to figure out a way to share this Menti later on. But essentially, I don't know, we can start to step through it if we have time here. I just didn't think we'd have time to do this. So I can also try to find a way to share the link after.
Yeah, let's see. One way, because Meredith has emails to everyone,
Okay.
so she can send this out, and let's help Leslie in her work and help her
So
directions.
yeah, and it would help us with sort of what the community needs in terms of data. So like what, do you want a DSM or a DTM or a Hillshade? What are the products that you need and how do you need them? So let me figure out a way to share this out, and then I'll send that to you, Anna. It'd be great if you could circulate it.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Oh, I had a quick question. Sorry, I had a lot of talk in the background and I've lost my voice. I was wondering, so I work for the National Weather Service. We have, I'm here in Alaska, but I'm technically part of headquarters. And so we have like a national data viewer where you can look at any weather service products, anything, forecasts, and then anyone can pull that metadata easily. We've made it really easy in whatever format. What's the best way to kind of share that with state GIOs? Like when we had the hurricanes in Florida, we were trying to reach out to the Florida GIOs, but what do you think is the best way to make sure that state partners and city partners know they can pull NOAA forecasts and see it in a geospatial way? And observations as well.
Well, so let me make sure I understand your question. So from a hazards perspective, are you saying about, are you thinking more along the lines of like response, or are you thinking more along the lines of like model integrating with model predictions, models?
Oh, well, we have kind of both. So we have basically like a forecast, the official National Weather Service forecast, that forecasters have worked hard at. So you could, like see, oh, is there a wind warning in this coastal area? And are we expecting flooding? And then we also have observational data, satellite data, radar, all that stuff that we think might be helpful in for preparation and in recovery as well. So it's basically anything they would find on the Weather Service forecast office, but in geospatial format.
Yeah, so I mean, it's likely those are already integrated into state operations with regards to our state emergency operations center and those groups that are actually doing hazard forecast or mitigation or response, right? Like, so we've got the individual programs or, programs within the states that will do that, and they look different across different states, but they're already likely, those resources are likely already integrated in. If you're just looking to like make people more aware that these data exist, me and you or me and Weather Service can partner to make sure that when someone goes to the portal and they type in Weather Service, somehow they're directed to your resources, right? So yeah, and just as a side note, I work very closely with the Weather Service and the deputy director and the director, and so they're very much keyed in to our federal and state coordinating body, which is typically in Alaska, where a lot of the hazard response occurs right after post-hazard. There's that community is connecting in a way to say who needs what. I got this contract, I can utilize this, I got a plan in the air, right? Like there is already that community in Alaska that is connected and exists.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much.
And Leslie, how can we help you? I'm thinking as an Alaska resident to like help you get more resources because there's so much to do.
Help me. Go.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, the state of Alaska having a grade of D, how can we as Alaska residents or scientists or whatever, how can we try to help this effort forward and yeah, make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, working within your representatives, right? I mean, it's like that's how things typically work in Alaska. You're working with your representatives, just to help them understand the importance of this data. I think we need to be better at, just communicating, I think, really the value of this information and the gaps in Alaska. And so, yeah, it's I think I don't really have an answer for this, but like, I mean, I do, but, data life cycles are very interesting. I didn't talk at all about that, but, when you think about like, how does my address get into Google? Right? There is a life cycle. There's literally a life cycle for that, right? Like it starts at a local government. It sometimes goes to a state level. Then it goes to a federal level. It gets into the national address database, and then Google's consuming it. And then there's private entities that are scraping data. And so, I think I'm totally off topic here, but I think just communicating just the importance of having governance, funding, and sustainability for these information. It's not something we one-off fund. You actually have to have, like, successful offices in other states similar to me have 30 staff, $30 million, right? So like you know, you have to have sustainable staff and resources to manage these assets in real time, because they change daily, right? These information are real time changing daily. But, you know, everyone wants to know, like, why isn't my house in Google Maps?
All right. We're on the hour here, but Jonathan, do you have a quick comment?
Yeah, I work at a small bureau in the federal government, and I would rate ourselves as D as well for geospatial. Not because we don't try, but same issues. We are small, limited budget, and I don't know. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit. I'm pretty impressed with what you're able to accomplish with what you have. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Jonathan. And thank you everyone for coming here today. Thank you, Leslie. We'll have a YouTube recording of this up for public use, and the members of our PIC will have access to the slides later on too. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
you.